Hello, I'm Jesse, and this is Nap and Die Live. This is my first live broadcast, and I'm hoping y'all come and join me. We'll see how this goes. I don't have any particular topics to discuss this evening. This is really just kind of a Q&A. Hi, how are you? And I have people coming in. Hi, guys. Wow, this is amazing. Eve, hi, I recognize you. Betty, hi, I recognize you. Rosalie, hi, I recognize you. DFTBA and DS, I don't know what your real name is. Susan, hi from Michigan. Oh my goodness, I can't believe you guys. You're wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to pop in and say hi. And I'm I'm thrilled. Yeah. I was afraid I was going to be sitting here doing this alone, and I really wanted this to be interactive. Oh, that would be so cool, Betty. I haven't talked to the guys at all in a long time. A couple email messages when they did their cowl, but nothing since then. Cindy, I'm sorry. I know you. We have so many different uh, IDs and tags online. It's almost as bad as all the passwords you're using. I talked to a friend earlier just a few minutes ago, and she was trying to figure out how to log in to her Google account, and she was saying, which Google account, which email, which password. And I realized I have three passwords that I have to use just to clock in at work every day. And we have too many passwords, too many passwords. Oh, cool, Rosalie. I can't wait. I hope Michelle, right? I think I have that right. I, I'm juggling a lot of names. I try so hard to remember everyone. Margaret, that's right. I'm sorry, it's Margaret. I had an M. I had an M. I was trying really hard. Wow. This is really neat because I get this live feed that I get to talk to you guys, but I get this neat run of messages down the sign here where I can see what you guys are typing to me, and that is so cool. Leanne, hi! Thank you for joining. You're right, Betty Ann. Otherwise, I don't know who's watching me. The YouTube platform, the podcast, we can see how many views we have, but we don't know who the viewers are unless you're subscribed. And even then, when you're subscribed, we only know about the subscription when it happens. We don't know that Betty Ann watches me every week unless Betty Ann leaves me a message. So that kind of feedback, this feedback is awesome. I wish I was in my pajamas. I It's like a million degrees here today. It was hot yesterday, 111. Today we saw, I think, 102. Ugh. Eve, isn't it like 2 a.m. your time? I see you're in bed. It's crazy. Thank you for everybody that made time and was able to pop in. This is wonderful. I will try to plan another one that's a little bit more daylight. I did have a number of people. I had somebody from Sweden contact me. I had somebody from Denmark contact me and let me know that 3 a.m. was a little tough for them. I totally get it and I understand it. Eve, big hugs to you. Thank you. Next, we're going to have you do a live one, and I will stay up until all hours of the evening to see you live. That would be so cool. So you guys really get to drive the conversation. What do you want me to battle on about today? What questions do you have? What would you like to know more about? What am I failing to answer for you? Your cunning plan. What have I done? Farmhouse shawl, farmhouse shawl, farmhouse shawl. Okay, babe. It's coming. Not fast enough. I know. I get it. Um, So I'm doing the knitted bind off right now. Oh, cool. Eve, do it. Do it. It's so cool. I'm working the knitted bind off right now, and I am 1/3 of the way through. I just finished the first third of it. You can see it all curled up there. And it's an edge lace. So if you're not familiar, I'll talk about my paleo diet for sure. If you're not familiar with the knitted edge, knitted on bind off edge, um, basically what happens is you have all the final stitches still live on your needle, just like this. And you cast on just a few stitches, and then you work back and forth a narrow lace, and you're doing a knit two together to absorb the stitches that are on the live needle to create this lovely lace edge the whole way along. I love this technique. It's easy to do. It can be a little tedious. If you're going to bind off 600 stitches, that's going to be tedious either way. But if you do the lace, it really just adds pop and punch and extra flair to it. And you have to remember that you're knitting lace and not just binding off. Otherwise, if you're thinking in the bind off way, you're like, oh, this is never going to end. I'm 1/3 of the way. Once this is done, I'm going to block it. We'll get the initial photography done. And I will write it up and get the testing out. And immediately start on the 3-color one. I have somebody who will be doing my sample knit for the 3-color one, provided my math is all good. So that's going to come along even faster and enable me to start a new version. So I'm really excited about it. So I'm going to read down through the line here. Do we have to stick to knitting? Want to hear about my paleo diet? Are you sick of the repeat yet? No, but I'm blind because I know the repeat of the lace so well at this point that I actually get lost in the repeat. And I'm like, did I just do 3 or 5? So I totally, yeah, I'll be tired of it. Applied bind offs are beautiful. They're so easy. They're fun. Awesome. Ooh, Shetland Hapshaw. I bow to your excellence. That is not something I've ever done. I've done some lace weight shawls, and I really found that when I was teaching, that fingering weight was about as low as I wanted to teach so far as gauge. Um, Beginners and early shawl lace knitters really appreciated working large gauge, and that's why I actually have a couple of patterns that are uh, worsted weight. And I just never designed down to lace. I don't think I've ever designed a lace shawl that's lace weight. I pretty well stop at fingering. I also find that my hands don't like to go bigger than worsted, and they don't like to go smaller than fingering. So be kind to your body. Be kind to your body. Um, how do you figure that out in the design? Tiffany, hi Tiffany. Are you talking about the lace? About how I figured out how to do the applied against the lace, against the shawl? Yes. Okay. So math, math. Um, what I had to look at was what the repeat was for the applied lace. So I knew how many wrong side rows in this particular case there were in each repeat, and that set the rule. So in this case, my repeat is an 8-row repeat. So I know that I have 4 wrong side rows, and those are my knit two together to do the application. So my rule is a multiple of 4. However, you have to extend out, and that initial extend out and come back has to be a +1. So I know that the math for my shawl is that my final row has to be a rule of multiple of 4 +1. And I just had to work my row count and my stitch count in such a way that I ended with that rule in mind so that I could do the applied lace. A lot of math, a lot of math. I'm very lucky. I really enjoyed algebra in school, and I did a lot of figuring out what X was. And X is pretty much anything that two knitting needles are going to cross into. Um, very, very heavy math, a lot of problem solving. In the farmhouse shawl, I actually have two places where math really came into play. The first is, see if I can pull this up. The first is getting down to the lace repeat. I needed to make sure that it met the rule for this and then met the rule for this. So lots of tricks. In the end, I had a handwritten spreadsheet where I had how many reps I had, how many increases I had. I had the rule that I had to meet at that point. I had how many more increases I had. I had the rule that I had to meet at that point. And I worked backwards to figure out what my cast on was and got it wrong 3 times before I finally sorted out what the cast on needed to be. Then when I had the cast on, I had to take the cast on and bounce it back against my gauge to see what the circumference of the neck was going to be. So there's the neck for this. And I needed to make sure that it was reasonable, that it wasn't like a 6-inch neck because then it wasn't going to go anywhere, but also that it wasn't like a 24-inch neck because it was just too much and you were starting so late in the shawl size-wise that you're going to use a ton of yardage. So I really aimed to have a very specific circumference for the neck and have it be this 3-sided square thing. This shape is a shape I love. I actually have more ambition than time. I would really like to do an entire series of the 3/4 squares. I'm also very, very addicted to the Harry Potter series. I love the Harry Potter world. So platform 9 3/4 collection, if I could get 9 3/4 square shawls, yeah, that would be the bomb. I would feel really excited about that. There's number one. So, long way to go. Long way to go. Rosalie, do you participate in the Harry Potter Knit Crochet House Cup on Ravelry? And what do you know? Also, what did you guys want to know about my paleo diet? That's always curious. Oh, Rosalie, you got to go check it out. It is fantastic. You get sorted into a house. You do house points. We have class prompts. You knit to the prompts or dye to the prompts or spin to the prompts. And you gain points for your house, all towards the house cup. And let's see, we do it in thirds of the year. So every 3 months, 4 if you do like an owl project. Somebody wins the house cup. It's fabulous. It's fabulous. Stalk me on Ravelry and take a look at my groups. It's the HP Harry Potter Knit Crochet HPKCHC group. And it's wonderful. I did it for years. I have recently bowed out of it just because I don't have the time to commit to it. Dye question: how can you dye your yarn to make sure it doesn't pool? So pooling. You got a couple choices. So are you looking to do multiple colors? If you're looking to do multiple colors, you want to make sure that it's as random as possible, that you're not dyeing a segment and then dyeing a segment and then dyeing a segment around. If you're dyeing in segments, it's going to pool. If you're working with like a fingering weight, that pooling can be cool because it'll actually, on stock weight, create a spiral that will chase itself around. If you're talking about doing more of a blend, then you want to make sure that you do like my half wall pour so that the colors bleed into each other and it won't be so woolly. Does that make sense? I've only seen a couple of shawls this shape. I don't remember what the other pattern was, but I was just inspired by it. I loved it. I'm trying to think, did I knit it or was it just something I saw? No, I have one that's knit, but it doesn't have the neck cut out. And that was something that I just kind of did the math on and sorted out because I wanted it to fit better. It was really somebody had taken a standard triangular shawl top down, and instead of doing two panels, they did three in their design. And I took it one step further and I said, okay, let's do the three panels, but let's cut out for the neck and make it wrap a little bit closer. I like it wrapped right up closer on my neck. Um, What goes into my basket during a regular food shop? What raw ingredients do you start with? Does my husband follow the diet? When did you start a paleo diet and how closely do you follow? Okay, my shopping basket is eggs, meat, a lot of meat, bacon. Oh, bacon is gold. I live with bacon. I eat bacon all the time. If I have anything that's baked, I eat um, either coconut flour or almond flour or hazelnut flour, and I bake my own stuff. I make my own crackers. I make my own cup. Use any milk. Any cheeses that I have are nut milk derivatives. There's some wonderful cashew milk cheeses out there. There's almond milk cheeses. There's some really quality nut cheese out there, which I think I just said something really nasty. Um, my husband does follow. We've been doing the paleo diet now since, let me think, how many years? Before I started this job, five, six. I think I've been doing it 7 years now. Collectively, I lost 60 pounds doing it. I got to the point where I was too thin. I legitimately was starting to look like kind of a bobblehead. I was very, very thin, but you know, your skull doesn't change size. So I got too thin. Um, yes, I drink alcohol. I can have alcohol in my diet. I basically have a wheat allergy, um, but I by eliminating all grains, I eliminated all the GM products that are. Our country has a very serious opiate problem, very serious, and the majority of our grains are classified as opiates now because of the things that we have done to make the crops sturdier and last longer. Those opiates are being eaten by our cows. Our cows are passing those opiates down through our milk. We have opiates from medical waste in our water, and my body doesn't respond well to these things. So I just eliminate all of it. Um, so eggs, I have two fried eggs. They're fried in bacon fat every morning. I generally have a couple slices of bacon. I eat a lot of salad, great big salads full of all kinds of things, dried fruits and meats and every veg I can load in there, and fruits and really load it up. There's some wonderful paleo salad dressings out there. Of course, olive oil and apple cider vinegar make wonderful. I season a lot. I use a ton of herbs. Um, really pretty natural. A lot of people freak out and they're like, "Well, what do you eat?" I eat great. I eat wonderful. Um, and you know, there's cupcakes and um, all kinds of things that I make. I don't particularly like the store bought ones. They have a tendency to have a little bit of an aftertaste. As for sugars, people ask about sugars. I have maple syrup. I have honey. I don't use any refined sugars. Um, Alcohol, really? Yes, yes. I. You got to be careful with alcohol because a lot of it is made with wheats or corns. Um, I really enjoy a hard apple cider. Generally, that's safe. It's gluten free. I also have found a number of vodkas that are grape based, and that works. And if I'm in a cheating mood and not too concerned about my weight, a good old glass of whiskey goes a long way. Let's see. Hi, Marie. Awesome. Thank you for joining. Um, yeah, I don't have any soy. Mm-mm, no soy. Um, so I eat a lot of nuts. I eat a lot of seeds. With the nut flours, of course. There's no peanuts. Mm-mm, no peanuts. Peanuts are not nuts. So no grains, no peanuts. Um, Soy is technically a grain. Um, Corn, okay. I live in New Mexico. I That's my cheat. That's the one place where I step out of line pretty hard is corn chips because I don't know that eating salsa with a spoon is polite. I don't know. I used to eat legumes. I used to eat lentils. None. No beans, no lentils, no legumes at all. None of it anymore. Yeah, I love microbrew beers. Unfortunately, my wheat allergy, it's hysterical. I will have like my husband will sit down, he's really into microbrew beers, and he'll pour one out and he'll taste it and be like, "Oh, this one's really nice. It tastes like raspberry or whatever." I'm like, "Oh, I'll try that." One sip and I will start sneezing. I don't know what it is. Yeah, there's no eliminating salsa. No, no, not gonna happen. How did you start your thousand things? I have two down. Yes, two is movement, two is something. I don't really remember. It was something that I saw people doing on Instagram. There was somebody that had posted some things about um, simplify your life and a thousand easy steps or something ridiculous like that. And they had just set a goal, a thousand things, and I was like, "There's no way I have a thousand things to get rid of." Well, let's give it a go. So I started. We're stalled. We're stalled. We're still at like 700. It's written on the refrigerator whitey board thing. It's like 790 something. Um, we desperately need to go into the garage. Still, it's scary in there. Yeah, Eve's on me. She knows it's the garage. Um, we have, yeah, it's all in the garage. So I have some things stored in the garage, like past life crap in boxes. My husband is a motorcycle enthusiast. We have one, two, three, four. I think there's seven motorcycles in our garage. Um, he has parts to rebuild two of them. One of them is a spare racing motorcycle. There's all kinds of parts in there. Plus, compressors and hoses and nuts and bolts. And then there's past paint jobs for rooms in the house. There's cans of paint. We have junk. The bikes, of course, that's nothing that will be eliminated. But there's old flower pots and stuff, old gardening stuff. That all needs to go. Just stuff that we're not using that we store just in case. There's always that thing where what if I need? And the truth is, if you need it, you're probably going to go buy a new one and not dig around or balancing act through there to try and find it. So, man, is my sheep a ceramic or a soft? I love it, love it. Bikers are some of the best people. Yes, my husband's Captain Safety. He wants to wrap me in bubble wrap. He is one good man. He does not like when I try to go commute to work on a motorcycle. So therefore, I haven't in quite a while. My sheep, this little guy here. So let's pull him up. Let's see if we can focus and see him. He's going to be hard to see. So my little sheepy, um, this was a gift. It is styrofoam wrapped with a very fine yarn. See if I can show him for you. And he's got like some styrofoam legs and a cute little canvasy face. And these adorable little felt ears. He's really very cute. He was a gift, and it's kind of a sad gift. Um, the yarn store that I used to work at, that I used to teach at, they closed. My local yarn store is no more, and they had a huge glass container display case that people had brought sheep into them over the years, and they had the collection all in the glass case. And when they closed, we they distributed among best customers and teachers and other supporters the collection. So I was there for the closing. We had kind of a funeral. It was really sad. It's a sad thing when you lose your local yarn store. I am grateful for every day that they were open. They were a huge resource. It was a big, beautiful store. They had so many yarns. We had fantastic teaching space. We had two large classrooms that were actually one giant room with a big divider curtain. We had whole walls that were the whiteboards, so we could work right on the walls in there. We had a wet lab, so that we had a room with a table and sinks, a microwave and a spin dryer, so that I could actually teach yarn dyeing there. We had another weaver's room that had looms set up in it. They had a huge collection of spinning wheels that you could rent from them, and you could go and take spinning classes from them. It was a big store. There were four owners that actively participated in the store, and I miss it still. I miss it still. I dream someday of having another local yarn store that I can go live in. Oh, wait, that's my studio. Um, yeah. One screw, one washer, one bolt. You're right. At that rate, I got a million things. And yep, without fail, you need it 2 weeks after you toss it. Yeah, I had a couple things that I eliminated from my studio that I was like, I haven't used this in 4 years. Got rid of it a week later. I'm ripping the studio apart. And I'm like, John, where's this? He's like, you threw it out. I'm like, sure. Okay, guess I don't need it that bad. Oh, Marie, he doesn't have a name. I I wouldn't even know what to name him. I don't know. I should name him. It is really sad. I hate to see yarn stores close. I do have a shop that I vend out of in Wisconsin. Unwound, I talk about them pretty often. They are new. They're about to have their first anniversary, and I am so excited for them. Um, but I'm always terrified. I want them to last forever. I want them to last forever. Everything has a beginning. Everything has an end, and so we're gonna hope. We're gonna hope. Oh, be careful with the thunderstorm. Certainly don't keep your stuff plugged in. I've lost digital stuff because of thunderstorms. I'm sorry if the sound is cutting out. My apologies. Um, my accidental car wreck. You're all right, Rosalie. Uh, yeah, that was a donation that wasn't supposed to happen. If the sound is cutting out, my apologies. Um, my regular filming setup does not work to do this. When I film my podcast, I have a separate camera. It has a microphone now. Thank you guys. Um, that I film everything to, and then I take a data card and it comes over to my laptop for YouTube Live. I wasn't able to get that camera to connect to my laptop. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. So using my webcam, and the quality is yuck. But I'm here and I get to do this with you, so we're gonna soldier on. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, no, my Wi-Fi does the same thing, and I never know. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. You eliminated your phone yesterday. Tiffany, what do you mean? Did you get rid of like your landline and go digital? I'm sorry about the sound. Part of it may be, oh no, sorry, Tiffany. Um, Part of it may be also that the microphone on the laptop simply can't keep up with me and my tone. I've had that problem before. Sorry about the lake. I don't think a bag of rice is going to work that time. Yay for new phones. Oh, what were my thoughts on starting the podcast? Okay. So that one's tough. When considering a podcast, starting one of your own security, etc. So there is a security concern, of course. I've seen some podcasts where people just, wow, they hang themselves out to dry. Um, yeah, no, at the bottom, that's awful. They hang themselves out to dry where they say, I'll be at this from this time to this time, and here's my beautiful house, and it's at the end of this road, and here's my mailing. It, your security is about your level of risk, and it's about choosing to safeguard yourself. Um, Trying to think, I had watched a couple of podcasts, and interestingly enough, the owners of Unwound had a podcast before the store ever happened, and I had found them, and I loved their chemistry. I loved the interaction. I hadn't been a big podcast watcher prior to that. There's another girl in Canada that I watch, Elise. I love Elise. She was pretty much a newbie knitter. She would just sit down and talk about her yarns and her acquisitions and her projects and the pitfalls and the joys. And I loved the diary aspect of it, but I loved the community because I don't have a knit night, I don't have a local yarn store, but I was able to interact with these people, and it's wonderful that I did. Interacting with Carolyn and Kate, my yarn's in Wisconsin in their store, and a lot of that is because I found their podcasts and I enjoyed them and I interacted with them. But I also I missed the community, and I very much wanted to not only have community, but I wanted to keep teaching. I don't have a local yarn store to teach at, and this kind of gives me a platform where I get to show you guys techniques. It gives me a platform to video some of the techniques to teach my mother. My mother lives across the country from me, and so when she stumbles on stuff with patterns, this gives me the option of filming stuff for her and showing her as well as everybody else. And I I've always taught. I started teaching pretty young. I taught skiing for a number of years, and I just love that level of sharing and watching the aha moment. With this format, of course, I don't get to work with my students the way I love. I don't get to see the aha moment. I don't get to sense the tension or hear the staggering breath to know, okay, we need to approach this another way. I don't get to see tears anymore, and I'm not really upset about missing that. Yes, my first class at my local yarn store, I made a woman cry, and I that still haunts me. I feel really bad about that. In the end, it was okay, but yes, my very first class, I made a woman cry. Um, but I do get your feedback, and I do get your questions, and I get to interact with you guys, and that's everything. To to have your enthusiasm about my patterns, the farmhouse, you guys love that, and that's something I did like 3 years ago, and it has camped. I just didn't do anything more with it, and that's a shame. I'm really glad that you guys have pushed me on that, and I've had a lot of people come forward and be like, "What took so long?" I'm very grateful for that because you're driving my designs and my ideas and helping everything go. Um, so if you're considering a podcast, it's going to be, do you want to do this for a diary? To some degree, this is a diary of my life and my projects and my accomplishments. Do you want to do this as a sharing point? Um, Do you want to do it for instructional purposes? It's about you ultimately. It's as much as I say that this is for you guys, it is for you guys, but it's really for me in a big chunk of the way. I have not had any creepy stalkers. I have not had not even a single troll has come into this yet, which is really nice. I have watched a couple of other people that had uh, live broadcasts like this, and they had trolled a couple of people that may not have been the most. Let me know. I'm happy to help you. I did have just an instability warning come up that my connection was a little iffy. I'm sorry if I broke up. I am still here. Oh, Betty, you're so sweet. Marie, always. I love feeding other people's energy. I want everybody to do more. I want you to create more. I look at this community very much as a collective of artists. I've had a couple people reach out to me and say that I shouldn't share my dyeing techniques. Why not? Why not? Um, yeah, I've seen a couple people that have made some skeins that were pretty close to mine. I'm not bothered by that. There's room for all of us. We should all grow. We should have fun. Let's see. Which lace shawl are you waiting for? You know, the troll thing on live and even with a podcast, if people leave nasty comments, we're in control. I can shut down a troll and block them. I can also remove their comments. So ultimately, if you're concerned about getting hate mail, delete. Didn't happen. Oh, who trolls a rescued kitten? These people are horrible. Right? Everybody should be able to teach their techniques. It's, you know, on Craftsy, I really like the Craftsy platform. Things have changed since they got bought, but I have always enjoyed the Craftsy platform. There's a teacher there, Sarah Ear. She teaches hers. She was part of, I believe, Sanguine Griffin, which was a huge indie dyer company for a while before she became ill. She teaches her techniques, and I've taken her classes, and I got some useful information from her classes, but I don't particularly follow her techniques. I think the benefit I got from taking her dye technique classes was that I already had some techniques in place. I had read some books that had some techniques, and then I saw her techniques, and I went, there's three ways now to get the same skein. It's about what's comfortable for me and what do I like. It was also about stretching the limits about how things were going to bleed or how things were not going to bleed and learning kind of the rules about the chemistry behind it. There's more than one way to crack an egg, and there's a bazillion ways to apply dye to yarn. So have at, take all the lessons you can, and make your own art. Make so much yarn. Oh no, we can make billions of pounds of yarn. It keeps growing. We're good. Oh, the gold one. Okay, yep, I got you. That is the Duchess of Santa Fe. Yeah, it's coming. I that one's a big bite out of my life. I'm gonna have to really set that one aside and work on that. Let's see. Every dyer is different. You are right, and we have so many other conditions. Our heat, our choices of color, our choices of base, the water that we're using, everything affects it. Everything changes it. And it's really no different than artists mixing up their own pigments for paints. Duchess of Santa Fe, yep. So the Duchess is gorgeous. She's a pain in the biscuits, and what she was named after, the individual she was named after, was kind of a difficult person as well. But she had panache and flair, and she inspired design. So, um, which dyes do I use? Good question. So I use all acid-based dyes because I'm working with proteins. I use the Jacquard brand. They are a little bit pricey as compared to the other one I use. The other one I use is Dharma Trading Company. Um, Price for price, I get almost 5 times the volume for the same dollar if I go with Dharma. Um, they have a number of colors that have different names for the same basic composition. They have a broad variety, really broad variety. I mix all of my dyes up. There are some people that are hard to the school of you only need CMYK, the cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and that every color can be achieved through those. Yeah, but it's going to take some really wild mixing and chemistry to get the color that I get if I mix, say, their olive against their intense blue. I will cross dyes like that all the time rather than using just primary colors. I use the premix colors and I blend them and mix off each other and get some really unique mixes. I also have a tendency to intentionally break dye. I think I talked about it once before that I used to teach a class called Breaking Good, in which I taught people how to basically, by making errors in the dye process, force the pigments to separate. And this creates halos and bleeds. And this causes what should be maybe a brown dye to show off its blue, browns, and yellows and split up. And that's super cool. It's a lot of fun. And it's nowhere near as hot. You can do that with just a microwave and cold water and vinegar, and you're good to go. Leanne, it's a beautiful wrap. It really is a beautiful wrap. I'm a little terrified of the bias on it. Part of the problem is that I was breaking up each of the lace sections with a horizontal braid stitch. Because I'm working on a bias, I'm increasing on one, I'm decreasing on the other edge. The horizontal braid stitch borrows in the wrong direction for what I'm doing, and I have to compensate. It's a little complicated to write up, but I think when because I was knitting and kind of designing at the same time, I think I made a mistake a section or two back. So I'm going to have to sit down and rip back. The beauty of the horizontal braid is it has a natural error in that when you work it, it creates like a braid that goes horizontally across, but the next row back has a very tall row height. So if I fail to put in a lifeline, I can readily thread back through those stitches, and that's really nice. So I just need to man up, sit down with my needles, run it through, tear it back, and give it another go. And once it's moving again, I'll be fine. There was a consideration where I have just done the Adventurous wrap, which I really liked. And that one had a really interesting construction in that you create two triangles and you sew them together in such a way that you get like a really elongated rhombus. I like the idea of it. The Santa Fe, the Duchess of Santa Fe, could be accomplished that way by making a couple of triangles and seaming them together. Now that I have the Adventurous wrap and I'm wearing it at work, thank God I have it. It's freezing in my office. Um, think that it has to be more elongated for it to qualify really as a wrap. It has this funny thing where I've got a triangle point on one end, triangle point on the other end. So I love my wrap. I will wear it forever. I don't know that I would design with that shape. I briefly toyed with pulling back the Duchess of Santa Fe and going with that construction instead. I've pretty well been to that idea, and I'm thinking very much that I'm going to continue with the elongated rhombus bias shaped wrap. So let's go with that. Um, we'll see. We'll see. It's about time. It's about time. What yarn was I using for the Duchess? I was using a yarn by Shannon Shaw, who is Supernatural Yarns. She was my mentor in starting my company. She was wonderful. She also participates in the Harry Potter Knit Crochet House Cup. That's how I met her. She sells all kinds of Harry Potter inspired yarns. Gorgeous. Oh, I have the envy. Really a talented designer, bubbly, wonderful personality. Love the girl. Never met her in person. Someday I hope to. I have all the love for this total stranger. I have love for all these total strangers. Um, Shannon and I have for years done exchanges for yarn for yarn. We both support each other actively. She will sell my patterns. If she's selling yarn, she'll knit up samples and use my patterns to help sell her yarns. We work very cooperatively with each other. That's a lot of um, when I first thought about starting my own yarn company, doing this, I was very nervous because I was so in love with her yarns and I asked her for information. I was terrified that she was going to shut me down thinking that I was trying to compete with her. No, the generosity that came out of this woman. Um, so that bred a lot of why I do what I do and why I am the way I am with this and promote you guys as much as I do and am forever saying, yes, let's launch your company. Um, that yarn is called Belle. It is part of her Beauty and the Beast inspired colorways. It is a gorgeous yellow. It is a fingering weight. I believe it is yes, it's a super wash merino nylon blend. It's a 75-25. I do not remember what the name of the base was. I'm pretty sure it's on my project page on Ravelry, but certainly if you're really interested, I can look that up for you. Let's see, I'm a little behind on reading these. 2 seconds. Let me scroll back here. You guys are wonderful. I can't believe how wonderful you guys are with all these. Now I've scrolled too far. That's useless. Let's see if we can get this back down here. Yeah, the cold water does wonderful things to it. The heat opens up the follicles on the hairs of the wool, and that's where we put the dye in and then lock it back down with the acids. But doing it with the cold, you hear it with the acid, and it separates and bleeds out beautifully. Um, yeah, that would be a cool Patreon video to do the dye breaking. That would be fun to do. What is a beagle braid? Eve, what's a beagle braid? Um, broke some dye. Okay, so think about it this way. When we talk about breaking dye, purple. What's purple made of? Purple's made out of red and blue. So I actually have a colorway that this broke out beautiful on. You take a pre-mixed purple dye, and by breaking the rules, by not using heat and acid or applying them kind of delayed out, when you put the purple in, the dye goes, I don't want to be purple anymore. I want to be red and blue. And it does that on the yarn. It goes, no, I'm going to be a little red over here and I'm going to be a little blue over there. And then when the acid sets it, spreads it out like that. So you still have some that's purple that's still married together. but all the components are broken out. And that's where you get really neat effects. You'll see that most often in speckles. If somebody speckles, if they do a dusting speckle with a premixed color, like say a purple, that is made up of other dyes, it'll fracture out when you dust it on. It doesn't stay as its color it should be. Let's see if I can catch up with you guys. Lateral braid, yeah, it's very much the same thing. Estonian braid, perfect, thank you. I haven't seen Rebecca Brown. I'll have to check her out. That's interesting. Yeah, I haven't produced any broken yarns for sale in a while. Broken yarns, broken dyed, just because they're so unpredictable. It's hard to reproduce that effect over and over. With heat and acid, it's easy to control. It's really easy to control. So when you're actively breaking, you have a tendency to end up with a lot of one of a kinds, just because that little bit of spoonful that you take out of the jar can have more blue than red in one spoonful and more red than blue in the other spoonful. So you don't get to control it as much. Tiffany, you're exactly right. That is exactly it, where you get that, you're knitting with blue, rather like a brown yarn, and you get that one blue stitch. And you're like, oh, she must have splattered dye on it. And I've seen a lot of people that will discard an indie yarn because it has broken dye on it. That's what makes it unique. You paid for that. Don't get rid of it. I will have to check out ChemKnits. Dye Pot Weekly videos. Awesome. Marie, I'm gonna stalk you to connect to that through Patreon. Oh, one of a kinds are tough. They're the easiest ones to make. They're hard to sell. People have funny stigmas about one of a kind. They either absolutely have to have it and they want it immediately, or they think that it's just a second, it's just a mistake rather than a unique offering. I always look at a one of a kind and go, cool. That will never be reproduced. Other people really, I've had people complain about some of my one of a kinds, saying that I shouldn't offer one of a kinds in a shop. Okay. Um, I don't know. I often in Etsy will even just do a search for OOAK yarn, and you get some really cool stuff in that one. Betty, you're right. There, nobody's the boss of us. I love to point that finger. People are weird. Right here. Tiffany, your yarns are gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, and I love your photography. I have all the jealousy. I wish I had time to do the pairings like you do, and the photography. It's beautiful. That is the best part about being an indie dyer is nobody likes the yarn. It's mine. I love it. Happy accidents. The weird monkeys, huh? Weird monkey fan club. I'd love one of a kind from you. Might as well right now. I hope there's practice. Oh, photography is probably one of the hardest challenges. I think I've shown off my light box that I use. I got it off of Amazon. There's links in my older podcasts about it. That made a huge difference because suddenly I had direct light and I was able to isolate so that I could really edit the pictures and crop them better. To that end, my natural preference is to have more of a staged photo where you can see other things in the background, where you can see textures and other colors. I think it better represents the yarn. Um, but at the same time, depending on your camera, it can pick up other colors and interact weird and misread colors, and that's one of the most frustrating things. Eve, is she the one in Canada? Weird monkeys. You know, Eve, that's a slice of brilliant. If you don't mind, I'm gonna steal that from you. I need to I'm gonna have to write that one down. I love that. Weird monkeys. Um, Detroit. I will look her up. E- Naming yarns. Ah, naming colorways. Two left feet monkeys. I like that one. Naming colorways is an interesting prospect. Sometimes I have something in mind already, and I design my yarn to that. Other times I will be dyeing and just having fun, and I'll end up with a color, and I struggle to name it because it doesn't remind me anything, or it inspires something that's too cliche, and I struggle with it. Conga monkey. Um, I need something that I need something that clearly is a mistake dance or just totally goofy dance. What do they call that? Interpretive dance. Interpretive monkeys. Ha, ha. Um, the naming is it's kind of stupid. I will have things that inspire a name, and then I have to create a colorway to match it. Uh, Dear friend of mine, her daughter just turned 2. She had Instagram picture of her daughter, and she was talking about her being smart and graceful and having a hell of a right hook. And it inspired a thing where I was like, oh, Claudia's a badass. That needs to be a colorway. And so I'm going to have to create that colorway in her honor. Absolutely. My husband and I will be sitting around and just joking or laughing about stuff. And all of a sudden I'll be like, that's a great name for a colorway. And I'll have to go write it down. But then I have to like reverse engineer it, figure out what colors represent that. How do they intermingle? My elusive husband, he's fake. I'm not married. Uh, my elusive husband. Contra dance. Yes, I do. That's some sweaty business. That's very much like being in the dive pots all day. That's a good idea. My husband, perhaps I think he might have made an appearance on one of my previous podcasts. I think his hand came in and waved at you. he's he's I wouldn't call him shy. He is elusive. That's a good word for him. He's quiet and he's kind of private. He's not really a TV camera kind of guy. He is, however, my best photographer. All of my sample photography. Anytime you see me wearing something, he took the pictures. No formal training, just he's one of those savant guys that he can take a hell of a photo. Crazy jealous of that. I spend all this time lining everything up and making sure that the rule of threes and it's all attractive, and he comes over and boom, and somehow he manages to make me look good. To that end, though, I've deleted an awful lot of photos that never should have been saved, where I look like I'm mid sneeze or am clearly glaring at something that he just said, or mm, you did meet my son. Yes, Sam actually did 2 episodes with me last summer. I was so excited to have him on. He is a knitter, and he is pretty fearless about it. He's not one to have any kind of um, pressure about gender roles, that knitting should be a female thing. He has just blinders to that. He doesn't care, which I love. I love this whole idea that there is this sexual divide in the craft. It's ridiculous. That makes me bonkers. Um, Sam is doing well. He just had junior prom. Oh my God, I'm old. Um, Acing it in school. I'm pretty sure, unfortunately, he lives across the country from me. I don't have a whole lot of day to day contact. Um, he's turning 17. I'm lucky if I can get a text message, which is, I don't rank. Um, Other focuses in his teenage world. Uh, Doing really well. I'm pretty sure he's National Honor Society. I know he's honors for his grades this year. He's looking to be a chemical engineer, which this paleo mom is just the tiniest little bit saddened by, because I thought I raised him better than that. I don't want him to mess with chemicals, but, which is ridiculous. He's going to be fantastic with whatever he does. He's got a really strong science math slant. Can't imagine where he gets that from. He also has a real flair for drama. Also, don't know where he got that from. Um, but he definitively knows who he is. And I think that is so important in today's world, in today's culture. Um, the sheeple should only be the ones actually producing wool for us. People need to know themselves and speak their voice, their mind, and there shouldn't be marks against that. Hmm. Marie, thank you. Yeah, yeah. Isn't it amazing how fast they grow up? I'm still convinced that I was pregnant with him longer than he's been alive. It was a just awful pregnancy. And the past 17 years, whoosh. I'm not sure how that happened, but it has been such an amazing and beautiful experience to watch him become the individual that he is. And I love watching his creative mind, especially with his knitting. Um, the last time I talked to him, he was like engineering a phone pouch, and he wanted to reverse engineer a stuffy pattern that he had, and I was just so impressed. He's really quite clever. Yeah, yeah, too smart. Wow. And Eve, thank you for asking about my son. That's very sweet of you. I um, I would love to see how he's improved. Unfortunately, this summer I don't believe he'll be visiting. He is otherwise engaged, and so we won't have a co-host. Maybe I can rig some kind of a thing where we can do a side by side. We can do a Skype uh, show. That would be great fun. Certainly, I would love to do that. Um, he's He's kind of funny in that even when we did the podcast last time together, I presented him with, this is what I do, and I would love to have you on, and I would love if you would be interested in sharing your experience, but don't feel pressured, and up to you. And he came in and he sat down, and I saw a lot of that sketchy, I'm not sure what I'm doing. And then the minute I started, he just fell so naturally into the podcasting. It was like he'd done it a million times before. And beamed with pride, radiated all kinds of love and mom pride at him. I just sat here and glowed. I was so impressed and so jealous of his ease at doing it. Yeah, that that was awesome. Absolutely. He, in the past, has helped me dye. He likes to experiment with color. He's always been very artistic, and he is really fearless about things. He has, in the past, called me up and said, "You know that color? You've got it wrong. You need to do this, and you have to put this color next to it because it's in the tertiary." And like he'll start to explain the color wheel to me, and I'm like, "That's awesome. I get it. I'm gonna try it." But I was really just throwing dye, and I got lucky. This wasn't planned. And at the same time, he'll have the exact same thing. He'll be just like, throw it at it and go, "Yeah, I meant to do that." Sure, you did. Make it look good, buddy. Oh, let's see. What else did I miss? I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch up on everybody's notes here. Yeah, I will honestly try to convince my husband to involve himself in some manner. Eve, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you making that extra um, time out for me. I know that it's crazy, and thank you for being up at the butt crack of dawn for me. Good luck with your builder. You have a wonderful rest. Thank you, and I look forward to your live episode. We are just over an hour at this point, so I think I'm going to wrap anything up here. If anybody had any final questions, go ahead and post them now. I'm happy to hang on and make answers for you all. Tiffany, have a wonderful night. Enjoy your dinner. Thank you so much for popping in and joining me. I really appreciate it. And your yarn is gorgeous. We need to talk, lady. We need to talk. Rosalie, thank you so much. I don't know if Margaret had a chance to pop in. Wonderful to have you along. Thank you. Your yarn is gorgeous, and I can't wait for your first pattern to go live. We're going to work on that too. Leanne, sleep well. Thank you so much. You guys, I can't thank you enough. I am so glad I wasn't sitting here alone and you guys rescued me and saved me. I so appreciate it. So I'll do that. Thank you, Marie. I have all the love for you. You have been